Good morning, KU. I'm Josh Kurlak.
And I'm Caitlin Culhane. We have a lot of sports news for you this morning, Jayhawks. Starting off with KU women's soccer, I understand you were at the KU Big 12 women's quarterfinals last night.
I was. It was in Kansas City. Actually, the first time it's been in Kansas City for 16 years, so an exciting thing for that town in Kansas City, Missouri at Swope Soccer Village. But unfortunately, our girls' women's soccer team came up on the short end of the stick in the quarterfinals of the Big 12 tournament. They lost to West Virginia by a score of 3-0. So not obviously the way that they had anticipated the Big 12 tournament going for them, but hey, no shame in losing in the first round to a team as good as West Virginia. West Virginia,
Absolutely.
A lot of people don't know a whole lot about women's soccer, and many people that I talk to are surprised when I tell them that West Virginia is a two-time Big 12 regular season champion in the Big 12, and they were the #1 overall seed in that tournament. Going on right now this week, the tournament will continue on Friday. Obviously, your Jayhawks not in it, but definitely something to keep an eye on in the future. So
absolutely, maybe in the future they'll have a good soccer team coming up.
Right, and that's the thing that I'm most excited for is next year. Can't wait to get back out there on the field. Well, not me personally, but get out and broadcast the girls' games out there on the field. I think that they have a lot of young talent who's going to stick around for a few years. And it could lead to some big success later on next year and maybe years to come. A couple people that I'd like to point out specifically is they have two very good defenders in that back line for the Jayhawk defense. You've got Taylor Estrada from Bentonville, Arkansas, who's just a freshman now, so she finished up her first year of soccer. And then Aurélie Gagne from Montpellier, France. You ever been over to France at all?
I've been there once.
Really? You have?
Yes.
Did you go to Montpellier?
I did not go to Montpellier, only Paris. So
we'll have to get Aurélie in here maybe later.
Yeah,
you guys can hang out and
talk about our French stories.
You know more about it than I do, but yeah. So moving on, the volleyball team had a game last night as well.
Yes, they defeated West Virginia in 3 sets, and I believe that puts them in first place in the Big 12 now.
It does, and that's really exciting for everyone here at KU. You know, obviously the football team not playing as well as most people would like, but hey, we've got a winning volleyball team. Yeah,
we've got some winning volleyball team, and then coming up in basketball season, hopefully we'll have some more wins and something exciting to cheer for.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Everyone's excited, anticipating tomorrow's opening regular season match here for the basketball team, excuse me, and I understand you're going tomorrow night?
Yes, I'm very excited. I've been to both of the exhibition games so far, so I'm excited for the first opener, and it's been a lot of fun so far.
It has. I haven't actually been able to make it out to a game, but been to my fair share in the past. Now, what's your group number for this?
We are 54 this time, so it's not too bad. But, you know, hopefully we can move up a little bit as some teams drop out.
Yeah, hopefully. There's always a few dropouts here late in the, last few hours. People get lazy at camping. But, so I understand that camping has kind of been revamped.
It's been a little different this year. They started a new online system so you can sign in before you go there. And so you just sign in online, then you get your number, and it has been a lot quicker from the past, as I've understood. So that's kind of nice, but then they were threatening to kind of take away the online system and move it to the parking garage for this next lottery on Saturday.
Wow.
So hopefully that won't happen. I understand it's back in the field house, but for what I hear from the past when it has been in the parking garage, it was not that good of an experience.
No, and that's what I want to tell you, KU students and fans. I was around when we used to do lottery in the parking garage, and it is not fun, especially when it gets to be November and December like it is right now. It was very cold.
Cold, and then early in the morning, it just doesn't seem like a good mix.
It does not mix. So you pick up your trash during camping.
So we can have it in the field house,
right?
In the warm.
Exactly. But as we mentioned, that game for KU basketball will begin at 7 p.m. Tip-off, obviously, inside Allen Fieldhouse. We'll be playing Kansas Jayhawks will be playing Louisiana Monroe. That's it for this first segment. We'll be back here at Good Morning KU with the news. Caitlin and Katie will have that coming up in just a moment.
Welcome back to Good Morning KU. I'm Allison Hammond, and I'm here with Joey Hensler, the president of KU Model United Nations. Joey, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Could you tell me a little bit about what KU Model United Nations does?
Sure. So there are two things that we really do. There's the Club of Model UN, where we meet every week and we discuss current events and we hold events on campus to give back to the student body. But then there's also the activity of Model UN that we participate in, and that's where we go and we simulate the United Nations. For example, like my freshman year, we went to New York City and we were the diplomats of the Islamic Republic of Mauritania, and you have to put yourself in the shoes of those diplomats in that country with a lot of study of their foreign policy and culture, but then you get to interact with other students doing the same thing. So my favorite story I always tell people is I was in a New York coffee shop with the ambassador from Namibia, who is actually a student from Germany, and we were talking about indigenous people's rights. And that was one of the best experiences I had at KU. But that's really what Model UN is about. It's like multiculturalism, collaboration, sharing of ideas, and mutual respect for our human beings.
So next week, KU Model UN will be going to a conference where you'll be talking about the goals for post-2015 millennials. Could you tell me a little bit about that?
Sure. So since 2000, the United Nations has been operating under the Millennial Development Goals, and there were 8 of them. They include things like eradicating poverty, gender equality, reducing mortality rates, things like that. But they're expiring, as you said, in 2015. And so the United Nations is holding these conferences across the world, 10 in the United States. And KU Model UN was invited to participate in the one that's happening in Kansas City, which is really interesting because Kansas City has had a long history of supporting the UN, especially with like UNICEF to combat like child diseases across the world. So through like a personal connection, we got some invitations, and we're going to participate in this conference, and we'll be discussing things like better, more affordable and nutritious health and food, good education. One of the Millennial Development Goals was primary education, but now that there is that framework in place, now we want to focus on quality. And so KU students will have a voice in these committees, and our notes, our declarations will be taken and gathered and given to the Secretariat of the UN to inform their decision-making processes as they move into the future of the post-millennial development goals.
So that's one way that young people can have an involvement in international relations. What are other ways that millennials can get involved in what's happening around the world?
Yeah, absolutely. So there are 2 things that Model UN is actually doing right now. Well, really 3. Like, you can just come to our meetings and discuss current events, and that's a great way. To be an informed, aware global citizen is really important. But then also to share that awareness, Model UN is hosting a high school conference on the 19th of November, and we're having like 120 students, so maybe stay away from the union at that time, but from across Kansas and from Kansas City, Missouri, and they're going to simulate the UN right here in the Kansas Union, and our students are leading that. They'll be sitting in on committees, like chairing them, officiating them, also judging them for their content and their presentation, and then setting it up, of course, was a lot of work. But also, something you can do, anyone can do, not even joining Model UN, you can lobby your senator, because currently there is the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities being discussed again in the US Senate. And we are a signatory to this convention, which grants the rights of persons with disabilities across the world. And a lot of nations, in fact, the United States is the only developed nation not to ratify it. And so we look kind of bad. And so if you could call your senator and lobby to get them to pass this convention out of committee and then into the Senate and out of Senate, that is something you can do that has real impact on the lives of people across the world.
Those sound like great ways for young people to get involved. On a more personal note, Joey, how did you get involved in Model United Nations?
Sure. So I've always considered myself a global citizen. I think our humanity is something really big that connects us all. And so freshman year, I heard about the opportunity and I really jumped into it. And that's something I absolutely recommend for all other freshmen. Like, find something you're interested in and jump into it. And like I said, I had that experience in New York City, and I got to go into the actual UN headquarters. And it was one of the best things I've ever done in my life. So, yeah.
Well, thank you for joining us this morning, Joey, and we'll be back after a break with the news.
Welcome back. I'm Katie with Caitlin, and here is your Good Morning KU news. Twitter stock is set to become available to the public when the markets open today. The social network stock is expected to follow in the path of Facebook, whose shares have more than doubled in the past year. LinkedIn stock has also skyrocketed in value. Twitter priced its shares at $26 each. Market experts expect heavy trading for the next few days, but say that prices will settle down eventually.
Blake Shelton was the big winner last night's Country Music Awards in Nashville. The Male Vocalist of the Year also won Album of the Year with Based on a True Story. Taylor Swift received the CMA Pinnacle Award for taking country music to a worldwide audience. She joins Garth Brooks as the only other recipient of this award.
The 24th ranked Kansas volleyball team swept West Virginia in 3 sets last night in Porsche Family Athletic Center. Reigning Big 12 Rookie of the Year, Taylor Susie, led the way with 10 kills and 4 blocks. The Jayhawks are now 19-5 on the season. KU will next travel to Austin, Texas to take on the Longhorns at 2 p.m. on Saturday.
The Lady Jayhawks soccer season ended last night with a shutout loss to West Virginia. Playing against the top seeded in the Big 12 tournament in Kansas City, the Jayhawks gave up 3 goals in the loss. The Jayhawks finished their season with a record of 7-11-2.
And finally, the Jayhawk men's basketball team wrapped up its exhibition season with a victory over Fort Hays State. Our own Jackson Long covered the game for the Kansan media.
Frank Mason gets the start at point guard for the Jayhawks in preparation for the season opener. Regular starter Nadir Tharp out Friday's game for an NCAA violation. No problem for KU in this one. Mason looked good from the get-go. A slick bounce pass in transition to Tariq Black. Another inside to Perry Ellis. And finally a dime off the pump fake received by Jamari Traylor for 2 points. Mason finished with 6 assists, just 1 turnover, and some love from Tharp on the bench. Andrew Wiggins plays 2, of course. His freakish athleticism showcased early and often. He scored 10 points, including a couple dunks, and showed off his filthy spin move that's become such a big part of his arsenal. Kansas wins 92-75, and despite Mason to Wiggins on this play, Coach Self wants them to turn up more.
We just aren't as turned up as what we should be. There's been so many teams in the past that we've had here that were turned up, and just off the energy that they created and the excitement in the building, you know, you can get up 12-4 or 14-2 or something like that, and that's just not happening. I don't think we're creating enough energy by our play defensively as what we have in the past.
And that wraps it up for today. We'll be right back with Josh and Caitlin.
Welcome back. We were just so excited about the KU basketball season that we forgot about that fabulous guest that we had. And I was especially really excited to be on part of like a winning team, cheering for a winning team, being from Chicago. Not always that much winning going on there with the sports teams.
God bless you for being a Cubs fan.
Yes, diehard Cubs fan.
Digressing from sports before we head off here, don't forget to head out to the KU Dance Marathon. It'll be held here at the Kansas Union on Saturday. I believe it starts at 10 a.m. and it'll go all the way till 10 p.m. Also goes to a great cause. All proceeds that are donated to that will go to the Children's Miracle Network. So
it's for the kids.
So get out
if
there.
You want more information on that, you can check out their Facebook page and their Twitter handle. So make sure you get involved in that this weekend.
Right.
Yes. And so thank you for watching. Good morning, Jayhawks.